Hey team, I miss being in uniform. I just want to lead out by saying that. And folks always ask what are the best parts of serving in uniform. And I think there's a million right answers there. But for me, it was having a name tape. Otherwise, I'd be guaranteed to forget the names of myself and everyone around me. So for today's presentation, at least as the maestro, we brought us a few notes to get us through. So with that, we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. For those of you I haven't had the pleasure of meeting, my name is TJ Banasik. Honored to be here at HammerCon 25. This is an event with a theme of winning together in innovation, inspiration, and initiative. Truly resonates with me, not only as a senior product manager for Google Distributed Cloud Air Gap, but also as a retired Army captain. My journey in the military, particularly my time with Army Cyber Command, was a formative experience. It's where I had the privilege of serving alongside our founder of this organization, Dr. Joe Billingsley, then Major Joe Billingsley. Joe's vision for the Military Cyber Professionals Association has created an indispensable community for all of us who have operated in the digital trenches, including folks here in this room. My own experiences from deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan to the current role of building secure cloud solutions for government partners have instilled a deep understanding of the critical importance of the robust and resilient cybersecurity community for our nation. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce our distinguished guest for this fireside chat, Ahmed Ali. Ahmed is the founder of Google Public Sector and serves as the head of Google's National Security and Defense team. With over 2 decades of experience in bringing cutting-edge technology to the federal government, Ahmed has been a pivotal force in strengthening the partnership between Silicon Valley and the national security community. He leads a dedicated team leveraging the full power of Google's innovation and support for our missions in defense and intelligence agencies. Ahmed's leadership has been instrumental in bringing this to our warfighters, sailors, and military personnel. Google's commitment to cybersecurity is foundational in everything that we do, in securing billions of users on our platforms to developing advanced threat intelligence capabilities. Our goal is to make the internet safer for everyone, and this commitment extends deeply into our partnership with the United States government. Through Google Public Sector, we are bringing a secure by design infrastructure, including data analytics, the transformative power of artificial intelligence, to help federal agencies modernize their systems and enhance their cybersecurity defenses. From supporting the Department of Defense's cloud modernization strategy to providing tools and training, our efforts are built on the bedrock of trust and a shared responsibility for protecting the nation's most sensitive data and critical infrastructure. Today, we have the fantastic opportunity to hear directly from a leader at the forefront of these efforts. To get started, we'll work into our first topic for the threat landscape. So, Ahmed, from your perspective at Google, what are the most significant cyber threats facing the United States government from our military today? How have the nature of these threats been evolving, and how is Google adapting its approach to help our partners stay ahead of our adversaries?
Thanks, TJ, and it's a pleasure to be here today, so thank you for having me. As I think about the environment that we operate in today, my largest concern by far is we are building a lot of tools that are essentially robot assistants to an average worker. And there is a massive amount of change that's going to happen and optimization for the economy. But that robot assistant can also make someone with ill intent really, really, really more dangerous than they could be otherwise. So I, as someone with ill intent, can go to the current generation of AI assistants and get malware written in 5 seconds, and really, really good malware. The only reason it's not happening is because the people who make the AI know this and have safety guard controls inside of the tools that do that. But as you might imagine, if the underlying technology is capable of it, someone could very easily bypass those safeguards. And so the biggest fear that I have by far is that we're going to get to a world where those who wish ill will and want to do bad things are going to be hyper optimized at doing the things that they want to do. So, not to be a downer to start the talk, but that's the thing that's the biggest part of the threat landscape that I'm worried about. And I'd say the second thing that really kind of has struck me as something that I kind of knew but didn't really appreciate is how easy it is to cause chaos in everyday life by doing simple things like, going after air conditioning. Right? I mean, it's like, nobody thinks about these well, I'm sure somebody thinks about these kinds of things, but I certainly didn't think about these kinds of things. Like, I spent my entire career, I started off my career as, I tell you, I'm old enough, I was an information assurance officer, if, everybody remembers what that role was, it's always been like, we're going to defend the networks, we're going to, firewalls, intrusion detection systems, and this and that, and all this other kind of stuff. And we always were thinking about, like, we're going to defend the IT. And I'm telling you, nobody gives a shit about the IT anymore. It's literally all of the life systems that impact the people. That's where the real threat is these days. And it is a little scary out there. So that's how I look at the world.
Spot on. Our next topic
I promise I'm a happy guy. Like, this is...
He promised he'd keep it PC today as well,
yeah,
so that's important.
The AC just stopped working in the room, by the way. I don't know what is happening.
Yeah.
That part of the presentation.
That's just global warming. We're good.
Next, we'll dive into the power of data and artificial intelligence. Google is renowned for experience in data analytics and AI. So, Ahmed, can you discuss how Google Public Sector is harnessing these capabilities to enhance the cybersecurity for national security community? Also, what do you feel are some of the most promising applications in AI for areas like threat detection, incident response, and predictive analysis?
Okay, so this one is something that I am actually very excited about. So I have been personally involved in like every epoch of technology over the last 30 years that has made the claim that finally we're going to be able to make sense of all of the cyber telemetry we're collecting. So it started off with like, there was a company in like the early 2000s that was, built a patent around applying thermodynamic principles to like network telemetry data, right? So you're saying like, okay, so heat moves from a source to a sink. I can't even remember the name of this company anymore. Obviously it didn't work because that company doesn't exist anymore. But, and so it's kind of like, so we're gonna put this magic box on the network and it's gonna tell you when you're being hacked. So that didn't work. And then I worked with another company that we talked about, we're going to apply a policy framework. And somebody created this language, this new language where you can define this policy framework. It would translate it as like a compiler, translate it into machine readable information, and then it would watch all the traffic going by, and it will tell you when it sees traffic that's out of policy. That didn't work either. And then, we go through like all these different epochs, and my excitement around artificial intelligence is we have finally gotten to the point where I actually can have a computer that can go read all of my data holdings, every single thing I've collected, and you can ask it, and it will answer authoritatively questions you ask of it in a natural language fashion. So we've finally built the raw capability to answer the question that everybody asks from a cybersecurity perspective, the several questions. question number one, am I being hacked right now? We'd like to have the answer to that. Artificial intelligence actually offers the opportunity to build capability that can answer that question for you, as good as a team of your operators could. Another question that people asked, a new, CVE comes out that's like, oh, this is the biggest disaster ever. And a leader wants to know, what is my exposure to this thing? And you want to ask a question and get an authoritative answer, and you don't want it to take 3 weeks. Artificial intelligence promises to be able to do that for us. And so for me, the opportunities for defenders for artificial intelligence use cases are like enormous, but the ones that I'm most excited about are actually applications of things that artificial intelligence has already proven useful for in other domains, which is essentially like I can point it at all my data sources, it's going to read them, and then I have a chat interface where I can ask and get authoritative questions, answers to those questions that I trust. So I'm excited about that.
Absolutely. Next topic area is the future of the public-private partnerships, an effort that's been ongoing for nearly 2 decades in the cyber domain. The collaboration between tech companies and the government is more critical than ever. As the founder of Google Public Sector, what's your vision for the future of this partnership? How can we foster a greater collaboration and innovation to collectively strengthen the nation's cyber defenses in the years to come?
Yeah, so this is a really good question, and what I like to call this is the multi-hat strategy, which is traditionally, going back, many decades, the relationship between government and the private sector was mostly like government and contractor, right? And as a very old boss I had at DISA many years ago would refer to it as godless, blood-sucking contractor scum, is the phrase that he used. And so obviously that's not a collaborative relationship. That's here's my requirements, you meet them and I give you money, right? Like that's a very transactional kind of relationship. And so for the longest time, I was thinking about like, okay, well, I don't want to have that kind of relationship, but we want to do like, a collaboration. And then we created this concept of public-private partnerships, consortiums, CRADAs, all these other kind of wonderful things. I think the future is in every organization being able to have all of those relationships with the government, but budget them. And it's almost like you have different hats. So I have this conversation with my teenager all the time, right? And it's like I have the dad hat, and then I have the boss hat, because he works for one of the organizations that I'm on the board for. And I try to be very cleanly separate those two things. Like, when you're working and we're in that relationship, like, you don't refer to me as dad, you refer to me as Ahmed, or, everything that everybody else would. And I don't treat you like you're my kid, I treat you like you're an employee of this organization, right? And so that's really hard to compartmentalize those kinds of relationships. So I think the relationship between government and private industry needs to have that same kind of thing. Like, are we here talking about like you buying things from me? Then okay, we have a government to a contractor relationship. But on the other hand, like if I come in wearing the other hat, which is the like, oh my God, I'm telling you something that's really important for the security of the country, like, don't come and tell me like, oh, I need to bring in my contracting officer, and like we don't need to have that conversation, right? Like we're just people here talking about something that's really important. And so that concept of like having multiple hatted relationships and then being very clear in every engagement, like which hat am I wearing right now, I think is going to be kind of the future of doing kind of successful partnerships, because I don't believe either industry or the government can afford to not take advantage of all the different possible aspects of a relationship with a company like Google or Apple or Amazon or any of these other big tech companies.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ahmed. We're now open the floor up to questions from the audience. As a fireside, we were definitely looking to engage with the
We got
audience.
one. I see a
got
guy.
a few over here. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Appreciate your comment.
Hey, hold on 1 second, if we can get you a mic. Just hold this in front of you. Thank you.
Hello, hello. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Appreciate your talk and your time this morning. I had 2 questions for you about 2 of the topics, and please feel free to answer either one. Question 1 was about Gen AI and Google's involvement, right? So LLMs work because they're trained off the massive amount of text data available on the internet, right? Available closed source and so on and so forth. I'm curious, DoDIC has a lot of data that is in text, but not plain English, right? So things like cyber, things like CNE, SIGINT, so on and so forth. So I'm curious, sir, if you see opportunities for LLMs trained, not even fine-tuned, but pre-trained on the kind of domain-specific data available in the DoDIC, on if that's an opportunity. So first question is Gen AI. Second question was decentralization, right? And essentially, I was curious, we heard a talk earlier about decentralization infrastructure and the importance. At a technical level, what kind of solutions exist for decentralized infrastructure in your eyes? Okay. So 2 questions for you, either or.
2 really good questions. So the first one is, PC. Heck yes. And we're actually in the middle of doing a couple of different projects, specifically building LLMs that are trained on very specific domain data. So one of them that we're building right now, we've actually already built, but it's going through the phases, called SecLM. And basically what SecLM does is it is an LLM that is exclusively trained to understand net flow and log data that's collected in your typical SEM product. So that's literally all it does. We're also doing a couple of projects in defense world that are being trained on documents that are essentially pictures, I should say, and in any language you can imagine. And so the idea here is, so the process in LLM world is called tokenization, but basically is you're pre-processing the data so that your native foundational LLM can process it like it normally does. And so Google's really big on doing those kinds of things. So absolutely lots of opportunity there. And it's not just Google, by the way. Anybody that does LLM technology can do this kind of thing. So it is an area that's ripe for additional exploration. And then the second question was if you can just decentralization. Thank you. Okay, so good. So this has been a journey for Google because our general strategy since the company was born was all your data belong to us, right? That worked for a while. Sorry, I had to use a nerd reference for this audience. Yeah. And so what we've done recently is we've done a 180-degree turn in the other direction, which is we have decided to do edge infrastructure, and in this case I mean real edge, which is it does not phone home, so edge infrastructure that can deploy of various sizes from little tiny boxes to 50 racks of equipment kind of stuff. And then the other thing that we've done recently is we have launched efforts to disaggregate some of our first-party services so it can run on other people's infrastructure, not just ours, or infrastructure that we provide, right? So like true on-premises. And the idea here for us is not so much like it's a resiliency play in the sense of like, I want to have a capability that doesn't have an unbreakable dependency on one piece of underlying infrastructure, so I can move it around, right? So it's like, if I have an AI capability, for example, that is asking and answering questions on analysis for like an intelligence stream or something like that. I'd love it to be able potentially to run in air-gapped cloud. I'd want it to run on-prem. I'd want it to run on a ship. I'd want it to run on the back of a Humvee. I'd want it to run in everywhere. And I'd want it to run in all of those places. I'd want to be able to move it around as conditions warrant. So for us, this concept of taking capability and moving it around is critical to cyber resilience in the sense that like one of the things I can do to respond to a cyber threat environment is move. Yes, sir.
So I'm with CISA, the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, and personal opinion here, not speaking on behalf of government or any of that kind of stuff, but good collaboration when it's one-on-one, especially with Google and a number of other companies. When we put everyone in the same chat groups, topics, and there's possibly competitors there, conversations really fall off, in my opinion. For obvious reasons. Yeah. And that really doesn't work as well. What can the government do, or what needs to be done from Google's perspective to allow more of a collaborative, like your discussion, when there's multiple players in the room on an important topic?
I don't really have a good answer for that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because whenever I've been involved in those kind of things, like the one that I was involved in one time is called the Enduring Security Framework. It's a long time ago. But anyway, it's kind of like every time I would go to one of those meetings, I would have a briefing beforehand with a lawyer and a senior leader that was worried about business strategy. So I would get scared, and be very, very careful in those things. So I don't have a good answer for that, to be honest with you.
I think cloud provider aside, one of the keys is the technology itself, because ultimately the warfighter is going to need to position an application that's resilient across clouds. And so open source frameworks, technologies, Kubernetes is a fantastic surface area for that. I think the key is to have a cloud that has enough open technologies that the warfighter can take the best in breed of those clouds and really emerge into the multi-cloud domain. I did want to touch on the earlier point of decentralization. Obviously, that's very key to our strategy overall. And Ahmed did a great job of talking about kind of our strategic backings and our motivations, but technology itself is very key in the how for what we do there. First, we'll start with the hardware. That's Google Distributed Cloud Air-Gapped, which is our flagship product for operating in the domain. We're really looking to address one of the very key challenges for warfare and cyber operators, in the fact that when the network goes off, your communications go down. DDIL is a very real thing, and in engaging with our partners, from the Department of Defense and intelligence community, it's a very common problem that during exercises, one of the key scenarios is cut the network and see who can still talk. Right, so very simple, but also very complicated for delivering hardware and solutions to do that. Google Distributed Cloud Air-Gapped Appliance is really our commitment to do that in the tactical edge domain. It's 100 pounds, two-person portable, about the size of a large suitcase. It operates completely disconnected from Google and the internet at any point. And so when you're on those exercises and you need to communicate and the network's out, this is truly a cloud in the box that allows you to do that. Onboard hardware, software, cloud stack, Kubernetes, obviously the foundation, GPUs, and obviously models for generative AI. In the model space, we have quite a few things that we're operating regardless of hardware and software platform. Obviously, we're into the Gemini and Gemma series of models and large language. For collectively building applications, especially what you talked about in language, Vertex Artificial Intelligence is our suite there. APIs for speech to text, optical character recognition, and translation are very key. And I think the win theme that we see is warfighters and defense professionals bringing together the best in breed of APIs to build custom applications to meet their mission needs.
So I think we have time for 2 more. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Thank you so much for starting us off on a sobering note and then kind of bringing us in with some optimism about the use case for defenders. As somebody who went from the offensive side to defensive side, I appreciate the transition there. I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about trust in models and AI systems. I'd love to understand more about what Google is looking at from a AI safety, AI security perspective, particularly as a foundational model developer. When you think about maybe some of GPS's potential customers in defense and intelligence, can you maybe speak to sort of what Google's looking at and thinking when it comes to ensuring safety and resiliency of AI models in mission critical applications?
Yeah, I mean that's a fantastic question, and it's definitely ongoing work. But one of the things that we've done is we've built it's SAIF is what it stands for, but it's like a security framework for building AI, and essentially it's essentially a supply chain play for us that includes the code, the provenance of the data that we're using to do that. We have a little bit of an advantage in that we have a lot of expertise with all the data that's out there. And being able to index and cleanse and all that kind of stuff. So we've been working on that for quite a while. So we have a little bit of an advantage there. But for us, it's a straight up kind of like standard supply chain play is how we think about AI. And then for us, secure and responsible go hand in hand together, which is being very, very clear about putting in controls that can't be messed with on what the AI can look at, and then tagging the content it generates. So it's very clear, like, kind of like authorship of where it came from. And then also making sure that it cannot be put in a situation that it is not designed for, which is like, it cannot be used to like automate certain kinds of decisions, right? So we all of those kinds of things together, we're very specific on. I believe, sir, in the back I saw his hand first, sorry.
Yes, sir. So you mentioned SecLM, right? Super interesting. Is there, basically there was some research done recently on how as the problem grows more complex, regardless of tokenization, the models fall flat, right? As soon as it hits a critical threshold, even the new like reasoning models can't reason, right? Is there some breakthrough Google's anticipating in LLMs to be able to analyze network data and actually get after, because attacks that's not going to be like, that is an attack and that is not. It's way more gray than that. Is there some breakthrough they're anticipating? I mean, these models had trouble with like towers of Hanoi.
We are absolutely anticipating a breakthrough, and that's probably all I could say about that. Okay, one super quick one. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So you were talking a lot about like AI security, model security. Do you guys have any, or are you guys looking into any research in like detecting like poisoned or toxic agent flows, or how do you know whether an agent has been, prompt injected, stuff like that?
Do you know about that? I
Yeah,
don't
yeah, we
personally
do.
know about that.
I think we could definitely go into that in more detail, probably in a private conversation outside.
Yeah, for sure.
We are up on time now, but we did want to kind of volunteer to take continued conversations. We've got Masan here from our customer engineering team, and definitely appreciate the opportunity to speak today at HammerCon.
Thank you.
Thank you, team.
Yeah.